Hey, today I'm going to show you how to build this grocery list in Excel. It has color-coded categories, checkboxes, and this really cool progress bar. Make sure you're watching in HD and let's get into it.
First thing I want to do is format my data as an Excel table, and there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, it will automatically expand when new rows are added, including any formatting we apply, things like that. And number two is that it makes your formulas easier to read. I'll show you what that looks like later in the video. So we're just going to select our data and then come up to the Insert tab at the top and click Table. My table does have headers, so make sure that is checked, click OK. And for now, I don't want any kind of table style, I just want it to be blank. So I'm going to come up to Table Styles and expand it and just use this plain one. Next thing I want to do is add a checkbox to this purchased column. So I'm going to select my whole range and then come back up to the Insert tab at the top and click Checkbox, and it inserts them just like that. The next thing I want to do is add some color coding based on the category. I want it to color the whole row based on what is in that category column. So I'm going to select my whole range and then come up to conditional formatting and add a new rule. I want to use a formula to determine which cells to format. So my formula is going to be equals and then a $sign and the letter C, because we never want it to move from column C since that's what the category is. And we're starting on row 2, so I'm going to type that in, and then we're going to say equals, and we'll start with bakery. So in quotes, I'm going to type bakery, and then for my format, I just want a light blue fill if the category is bakery. So I'm going to use that one, click OK again, and there you go. And then you just need to repeat that for all the categories that you have. So I'm going to come back up to conditional formatting, and now I'm going to manage rules, and then I'm just going to duplicate this and change it for all the categories that I have. So my next one is dairy. So I'm just going to replace bakery with dairy and then come to format. And for that one, I want a yellow fill. So I'm just going to click that, click OK again, and there you go. And like I said, you just need to repeat that for all the categories that you have. The next thing I want to do is cross the item off the list when this checkbox is clicked. So you can see I'm on the cell and the value of it is false, but when I check the box, it turns to true. So we're going to use conditional formatting to gray out the row when the box is checked. So I'm going to select my range again, because we want to apply it to the whole row, and then come back up to conditional formatting and do a new rule. And then we're going to use the same formula. We're going to say when column F, because that's where our purchase column is, and we're starting on row 2, equals true, because when you click the box, it's true. Then apply some formatting. So the formatting I want to apply is I want a dark gray fill, and then for the font, I want the font color to change to this dark gray, and I want it to strike out the item. So I'm going to use this strike through effect. Click OK again, and there you go. So now when I check the box on any of these rows, it crosses it off my list. The next thing I want to do is keep track of how many items I have left to purchase. So I'm just going to build a simple table over here. I'm just going to type out items purchased, total items, and percent complete. And then we're going to use some formulas to fill those in. Just one small thing we need to do before we start writing our formulas. I want to give this table a name. So I'm going to click in the table, then come up to table design. And in this name box on the left, I'm just going to call it grocery list. And this will make our formulas more readable. For items purchased, I'm going to use a COUNTIFs function. So I'm going to type equals COUNTIFs. And then my criteria range is the purchase column. And since it's in an Excel table, we can reference the table name and the column name. So I'm going to start typing grocery list, and you can see it auto-populates my table. I'm going to double click that. And then you put the column name in brackets. So I'm going to do a bracket, and it gives you all of the columns that are in your table. I'm going to double click purchased and then just add a bracket on the end. And my criteria is true because we're counting how many checkboxes are marked in that column. So I'm just going to type true, do a parenthesis and enter. There you go. So now when I check items off the list, that formula updates. For total items, I'm just going to use count A. This function just counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. So the range I want to count is in my grocery list table. So I'm going to start typing that again, double click that. And again, a bracket since we're referencing the column. And I want it to count the item column. So I'm going to double click that, add another bracket, and then a close parenthesis and enter. There you go. And then my percent complete formula is just items purchased divided by total items. And I'll just format that as a percent up here in my number formatting. The next thing I want to do is build a progress bar. So I'm just going to type progress here. And then to build the bar, we're going to use the REPT function. Let me show you how it works, and then I'll show you how we're going to use it to build that progress bar. So all this function does is repeats text a given number of times. So for example, if the text I want it to repeat is A, I'll do that in quotes, and I want it to repeat it 10 times. I just enter the number 10, parenthesis, enter. It gives me 10 A's. So we're going to use special characters to build a visual progress bar. First thing we're going to do is build kind of the background for the progress bar. So we're going to use that REPT function, and in quotes, we're going to do Alt 176. So just use your keyboard to type that out. Make sure you do it in quotes because you want it returned as text. And then to get the number of times you want it to repeat, we're going to take 1 minus the percent complete, just click that cell, and multiply it by 19 is what works on my screen. So let me show what that looks like. I'm just going to do a close parenthesis and click enter. So you might need to play around with that if your resolution is bigger or smaller than mine. For example, if I were to change this to a 5, it just makes the bar smaller. But I found that 19 is what works on my computer. And then we need to add another one in front of it to get the actual progress bar. So we're going to use another REPT function, and in quotes, we're going to do Alt 219. That's what that looks like. And then a close quote. And then our formula for this one is going to be the percent complete times 19, because again, that's what fits on my screen. And then we just need to join those together. So I'm just going to do an and sign and click enter. That's what that looks like. And when I mark items off my list, that progress bar moves. The last thing I'm going to do is apply a bunch of formatting to make it look nice and polished. I'm going to use a Thanksgiving theme, but you can customize this to your liking. The first thing I want to do is add some formatting to my table. So I'm going to come up to table design and then expand it and click new table style. The first thing I want to do is add borders, and I want to add that to the whole table. So I'm going to click that and click format. And then I want to add the outline and the inside. So I'm going to click both of those and click OK. And then for my header row, I want to change the fill color and the font color. So I'm going to go to format and fill. I want this fill color, and then I want white font. So I'm going to click that, click OK, and then apply that table style. The next thing I want to do is change the font. I'm going to select my whole sheet because most of it I want to use this Baskerville font. I'm just going to change my headers. I want to use this Bernard font, and then I don't want those bold. I'm going to take that off. I want that Bernard font over here as well. And then on this one too, I forgot my progress label. And then the progress bar looks weird with that font, so I'm going to change that back to Arial. And while I'm here, I'm going to change my progress bar color. I want this green, so I'm going to change that. And then I'm going to add some borders around this table. And then I also want a thick outside border on that one. Next, I'm going to insert some rows and adjust some column widths. So I'm going to insert 6 rows right here because I have a header that I want to insert. And then I want it inset a little bit here. So this column, I just want a width of 1. This one I want 4. And this is just something that I've played around with and figured out. This is how I like it to look. So you can tweak it how to your liking. This one, I also want a 1, and then this one, I also want a 4. Next, I just want to add a background color. I like to create kind of a panel, so I'm going to add this tannish color all around my table, and I'm going to come past my table because when I add new rows to my table, I want this to be the background color. So I'm going to come all the way down to row 100 and fill that in, and then I'm just going to fill in all of these empty spaces. Just formatting is really about making it look how you want it to look, so you can tweak it however you like. This is what I like, so this is what I'm doing. Just filling in all this empty space, coming down to row 100. It's just a lot of repetition. Now I'm going to add a border around this. So I'm selecting my whole range, and then I'm just going to apply an outside border. And then I want to turn off these grid lines. I want it to basically look like a white background. So I'm just going to come up to View and uncheck the grid lines box. Next, I want to freeze my panes so that when I scroll down, my header stays visible. So I'm going to click the row directly under my header, then just come up to the View tab and freeze panes, and then click Freeze Panes again. So now when I scroll, you can still see my header row. Last thing I want to do is add some text and images here at the top. So I'm going to type out Thanksgiving 2025, and then come down on a new line and type grocery list. I want the Bernard font for these, so I'm going to select those 2 rows and then start typing out that Bernard font. And then I want it to be a size 20 font. And then I want them centered and merged. So I'm going to select this whole range and then merge and center. Same thing with my grocery list, merge and center. And then this text, I want like a dark red. And this one, I want a dark orange. And then, yeah, I'm just going to add some cute little graphics to make it nice and pretty. So I'm going to come up to insert and click pictures. I want to place it over the cells. And these are just pictures that I got from Canva and ChatGPT. So I'm just going to insert one, and then the rest I'm just going to speed through. So I'm going to move it up here and then just tweak it how I want. So the first thing I want to do is crop it. I'm just going to right click and crop, and I want it to not go over my text. So I'm going to crop it right there. And then I'm going to click out and just resize it a little bit. And now I'm going to recrop it. This is just, again, kind of playing around and figuring out what you like. Yeah, I'm going to do it right there. So there you go. And I'm just going to repeat that for the rest of my images.
If you want a free copy, the download link is in my description. And if you want to see more Excel project builds like this, make sure you hit subscribe because I post every Tuesday.